The room around you has grown impossibly still, as if it were listening. Not just quiet, but that deeper, older kind of silence that only arrives after long hours of motion. When the world itself exhales and leans gently into rest, the air feels heavy in a soft, deliberate way, like thick velvet draped across your shoulders, warm and familiar, drawing the day to a close. You've made your way here, not with urgency, but with quiet intention, through hours filled with thoughts that flickered and faded, through rooms that no longer ask anything of you, until at last you arrive in this quiet space where no one is watching and nothing is expected. Outside your window, the last hints of daylight have slipped away unnoticed, and the sky, now dark and deep and endlessly still, presses gently against the earth like a hush laid over everything. The flicker of a candle reflects on the glass, and the hum of distant life falls away, leaving only you still breathing, still here, still able to listen. There is a particular kind of stillness that only night can offer. Not the absence of sound, but the slow retreat of noise into the folds of the world, like a cloak being lifted from the shoulders of the day. You can almost hear the shutters settling into place, the last footsteps fading down stone alleys, the wind curling into corners where it will sleep until morning. The burdens of the day, the decisions you didn't quite make, the questions you didn't yet answer have lost their shape in this darkness. They no longer push or pull at you. Instead, they sit quietly at your feet like dogs that have been fed. You are allowed now to drift, not with purpose, but with softness, with openness, with the kind of quiet curiosity that doesn't require understanding. This is not the hour of history's great dramas or thundering voices. This is the hour of breathing wood, of ink drying on forgotten letters, of candle wax hardening slowly in the chill. And so you step gently into a different rhythm, one that does not belong to today or even to this century. It is older, slower, stitched into the fabric of nights that came long before and will come again long after. It is the rhythm of footsteps on worn stone, of pages turning beneath candlelight, of voices whispering truths too fragile for daylight. It is not the rhythm of facts, but of textures and shadows, of hands pulling blankets tight against the cold, of shutters drawn not against enemies, but against the draught, of hearths that still hold the last breath of warmth, long after everyone has gone to bed. And in that rhythm you begin to feel something deeper, recognition perhaps, or simply the sense that you have been here before. Not in this exact place, but in this exact feeling, this exact hush, the stillness of a world not yet changed, hovering on the edge of transformation. You are not here to remember battles or memorize names. You are not here to measure power or trace the geometry of politics. You are here because something in you has always known that history is not built only from declarations and smoke and drums, but from silence and doubt and the way the light flickers before it fades. It lives in the moments between the breath before the cry, the footstep before the march, the glance exchanged in the doorway before the decision is spoken aloud. Tonight, we enter one of those moments, not as spectators looking down from a distance, but as someone already within it walking, watching, not knowing what will come next, only that something is coming. You are not a hero in this story. You are not remembered, but you were there, and that is what matters. You were there when the city still slept and the air itself seemed to wait. And before we begin, I want to pause here, just long enough to thank you not with ceremony, not with performance, but with quiet sincerity. Thank you for arriving, for choosing this space, for bringing your breath and your attention into a story that doesn't ask to be studied, only received. This story exists because you are here to hold it. If it brings you rest, if it offers you refuge, if it keeps you company in the long hours where the mind won't settle, then your presence is not passive, is part of the telling. If you feel moved to share this quiet perhaps by subscribing, or leaving a gentle comment, or passing this story on to someone who might also need its calm, you are helping this small light remain lit in a darkening world. But even if you do none of those things, even if you fall asleep before the second breath of history reaches you, that is more than enough. That is, in fact, the purpose. Now, breathe slowly and let the muscles of your shoulders soften. Let your hands grow heavy in your lap. Let your thoughts move like fog and hurried, unsolid, free to drift. You are not being asked to follow or analyze or retain anything. You are invited only to experience, to settle into the quiet thrum beneath the surface of a time long past. Let the walls of the present fall away slowly, like curtains parting to reveal a room still lit by oil lamps and warmed by stone. Let yourself begin to feel what they felt not, the glory of what was won, but the weight of what had not yet begun. The air will feel different. The silences will be longer. You will feel the cold in your sleeves and the warmth of bread passed quietly across a wooden table. You will hear a floorboard creak and wonder if someone else is still awake. Because tonight's story is not about what happened. It is about what was felt. It is not a summary, it is a moment. A single night, a single breath of time suspended in stillness. When the world had not yet turned, but was already beginning to tremble. And as we step into Boston, not as it is remembered, but as it was lived, you will not be told where to look. You will simply be there. You will smell the ink in the print shop, hear the ropes creak in the harbor, feel the low murmur of a tavern where men speak just barely above a whisper. You will move like a ghost who is not unseen, only unnoticed. You will walk through rooms no one remembers and listen to thoughts that were never written down. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, you will begin to understand something deeper than dates or causes. You will begin to feel what it meant to wait on the edge of history, not with certainty, but with breath. And if your eyes begin to close, if the room begins to drift, know that there is no need to resist. The story will continue, quietly, patiently, like candlelight flickering in a room where no one speaks. The revolution has not begun yet. The muskets have not been fired, but something has shifted. The night is thick with knowing, with doubt, with possibility, and you are part of it. You were there, though no one will write your name. You were there, and now we return. You begin your approach along a narrow path carved into the hillside, a winding trail bordered by weathered stone and low, uneven fences made of dark, hand-split wood. The light is already fading, bleeding gently from the sky in long blue strokes that soften every edge and deepen the shadows under the eaves of the nearby houses. With each slow step, the world around you quiets. The chirping of insects grows bolder as the human day recedes. You can hear the soft swish of your sleeves as they move against your sides, and the faint, rhythmic padding of your footfalls on the packed earth. The scent in the air is mixed, drying cedar, damp moss from the stones, and the faintest trace of smoke, the kind that clings to the hem of a robe worn near the hearth. You are not walking toward a place of noise or celebration. You are moving toward stillness, toward the hush that waits behind paper doors and wooden beams, toward the private world of the samurai at rest. Before you stands the gate, not grand, but dignified. Two upright pillars support a curved roof, its tiles layered like scales, its weight anchored by generations. Hanging from the beam is a charm, braided from rice straw and tied with white paper strips. It's fluttered, barely visible in the low light. You bow your head slightly without thinking, acknowledging the threshold not with words, but with silence. Beyond the gate, the garden opens into shadows, barely visible but undeniably present. Stones arranged in deliberate, meditative patterns rest among clipped shrubs and a narrow stream that reflects the moon in thin silver ribbons. You pause again. There is no need to rush. The air here is heavier with meaning, and you feel your breathing slow in response, as though your lungs are adjusting to a different kind of time. You step into the outer corridor of the house, removing your sandals and placing them carefully side by side, toes pointing outward. Your socked feet meet the floor, smooth, warm wood polished by decades of footsteps. The transition from earth to structure is gentle but clear. The world outside begins to recede. You move forward slowly, your fingertips grazing the wall for balance, your eyes adjusting to the gentle amber light that spills from a single oil lamp deep within the room. The lamp does not flicker erratically. Its flame moves with purpose, responding only to true currents. You feel the shift in temperature and atmosphere as you cross the inner threshold. The house breathes differently. It is not sealed from nature. It listens to it, welcomes it, transforms it into something internal and calm. The first room you enter is empty, but not bare. The tatami beneath your feet yields slightly with each step, its tightly woven straw exhaling an earthy aroma that mixes with the air like old memory. The walls are formed of rice paper stretched across wooden lattice, their surfaces glowing dimly in the lamplight, tracing soft grids that catch and hold the light in a quiet geometry. In the far alcove, the tokonoma, a scroll, hangs in stillness. Bold, elegant brushstrokes form a single kanji character, mu, emptiness. But as you stand there, the word feels full, as if emptiness itself could hold weight. Below it, a narrow vase supports a single sprig of crimson maple, its curling tips catching the light. This is not decoration. It is an offering to the moment. The architecture around you guides your movement without force. There are no signs or instructions, only space, carefully shaped to suggest a way of being. The ceiling is low, drawing you downward. The walls are thin, asking you to lower your voice. The open floor asks for care. Your steps become slower, your arms more deliberate, your posture naturally aligned. You begin to listen more deeply, to the house, to your body, to the quiet that fills the gaps between sounds. You hear the faint settling of wood above you, the shift of air through paper panels, the far-off splash of water as it moves across a flat stone in the garden. Each sound is small, yet deeply satisfying, like the final click of a puzzle piece falling into place. In one corner of the room sits a folded futon, resting atop a wooden bench low to the ground. The bedding is arranged neatly, its cotton core wrapped in thick linen, its edges smoothed with practiced hands. You imagine the nightly ritual, how it is taken out, shaken gently, unrolled with care, the corners tucked inward like a bow. You do not touch it. Not yet, but the sight of it is enough to conjure the softness that awaits. This is not a bed in the modern sense, not a permanent structure of metal or springs. It is humble, flexible, and light, designed to disappear with the morning and reappear with the coming dark. Like breath, it exists in rhythm. A small wooden chest rests beside the bedding, its surface polished to a dull sheen. Upon it lies a single garment, folded with geometric precision, a yukata, its indigo cotton faintly patterned with waves and wind. The fabric smells of soap and cedar. It is simple but dignified, meant for sleep but not for disarray. In this house, even rest is approached with discipline. The yukata waits, not as a luxury, but as part of a sequence, part of the quiet machinery of the evening. You lower yourself to sit on the edge of the tatami, folding your knees beneath you in seiza, letting your hands rest on your thighs. The floor is cool, but not unkind. The pressure on your legs is even grounding. You sit not to act, but to absorb, to feel the space around you, to allow its shape and scent and quiet order to enter through your skin. You become aware of your own weight, your own breath, your heartbeat as it slows. You notice the faint creak of the bamboo beam above you and the smell of warm oil rising from the lamp across the room. The world outside continues, but you are not in it now. Through the open panel to the garden, the night air drifts inward, carrying with it the breath of trees, of water, of soil cooling beneath starlight. A wind chime trembles once, a single high note that shimmers, then fades. The shadows outside are long and soft, curving over stone lanterns and raked gravel. Somewhere, a frog begins to call, low and rhythmic. The garden, like the house, is not ornamental. It is a living presence, shaped not to dominate, but to remind of season, of impermanence, of the quiet movement of life outside the self. Your attention returns inward. On a shelf near the wall sits a lacquered tray with a clay teacup turned upside down, its surface mottled with the marks of hand firing. Beside it, a small box holds folded paper, perhaps for incense or poetry, though you do not open it. Everything here serves a purpose. Everything here is patient. The house does not rush. It has survived storms and snow, earthquakes and aging hands. It has been rebuilt, restored, and loved in silence. It will be here long after your voice is gone. This room, like the warrior who sleeps in it, does not boast. It contains its strength. The home of a samurai is not loud or wide. It is modest, thoughtful, ordered. It teaches through its arrangement, its textures, its shadows. You begin to feel the lesson not as something spoken, but as something absorbed. In the space between lamp and wall, in the softness of your breath, in the stillness of your folded hands, something ancient is being passed to you. And as you sit there, still and quiet, you begin to understand that this is not a house in the modern sense. It is not a place you decorate. It is not a place you own. It is a place you harmonize with. The walls do not shout. The objects do not crowd. The air is not perfumed. And yet nothing is lacking. It is, perhaps, the fullness of restraint that allows you to rest. You remain seated on the floor, your legs folded beneath you, your spine aligned with a quiet reverence that the room itself seems to request without words. Beneath you, the tatami accepts the shape of your body, as if it had been waiting for it. Its surface, woven from rush grass and layered with care, releases a scent that is not strong but persistent, the scent of dry fields, sun-warmed barns, and time itself compressed into something material. Each fiber carries the imprint of a season, each mat the memory of footsteps that have come and gone, again and again, over years and generations. The texture beneath your fingers is firm yet yielding, a faint scratch beneath the skin softened by age and familiarity. This is not a neutral floor. It is a living thing, and your presence here is not forgotten. You are, without realizing it, being held. You run your hand along the edge of one mat, following the faint seam where it meets another. The boundary is not sharp, not abrupt, but subtly felt, a delicate change in tension, a shift in weave. the suggestion of order beneath the quiet design. These seams form a silent architecture, organizing space without walls, guiding movement without instruction. Each mat, rectangular and precise, occupies a measured piece of the room's geometry. There are no markings, no colors, no numbers, yet you can feel the rhythm in how they are placed, 3 by 4 or 4 by 6, in arrangements that shape the air as much as the ground. This is a language of stillness, of placement, proportion, and breath. You are sitting inside that language now, your body part of its quiet syntax. The tatami was never meant to dazzle. It was never meant to impress. Its purpose is not visual brilliance, but tactile serenity. It serves by disappearing, by becoming so familiar, so essential, that you forget you are even touching it. And yet, when you pay attention, there is detail beyond expectation. Each woven strand bears slight variation, some thicker, some more taut, others slightly darker, as if kissed more deeply by sunlight before harvest. The subtle scent shifts as you move your head closer, dry and herbal near the edge, more earthy and compact near the center, where weight often rests. These shifts do not call out, they wait for your awareness, they reward slowness. As the light of the oil lamp shifts, its flame reacting to unseen drafts in the room, the tatami becomes a canvas of moving shadows. The tightly woven grass catches the low golden light in alternating ridges, creating a pattern of brightness and dusk that travels across the room with every breath of the lamp. You can see the outlines of beams above cast faintly upon the floor, and, at times, the silhouette of your own arm or knee passing like a cloud over the grain. The shadows are soft-edged, fluid, never still. They stretch across the mats and recede again, flowing with the breath of the house. This movement is not dramatic. It is rhythm, gentle, inevitable, hypnotic. There is something about the way the shadows fall here that calms the mind without demand. In the modern world, shadow often signifies obscurity, something hidden or unknown. But here, shadow is not absence. It is presence. It is softness. It gives shape to what is too bright to see clearly. It reminds the eyes to rest. It invites the body to lean inward. In this house, shadows are not avoided. They are welcomed. They live in the corners, under the beams, behind the folds of fabric resting quietly on a wooden bench. They stretch long and slow across the tatami, as if sleep itself were creeping inward, gently, with patience. You notice now the worn edge of one mat, slightly discolored where hands have pressed again and again, where bodies have knelt, where the routine of years has left its signature. There is a nobility in that where, a story held not in words but in texture. This is not damage, but history. You press your fingers to that softened edge and feel the slight give beneath the weave, the way the straw responds to the body without resistance, holding memory in silence. In a culture where repetition is sacred, in sword practice, in tea ceremony, in calligraphy, the floor becomes a mirror to that devotion. Its fibers have borne weight patiently, and they will continue to do so with grace. As your eyes follow the line where the floor meets the wall, you become aware of how little is in the room, and how much that absence matters. There are no chairs, no tables, no clutter, no shelves of books or objects to announce identity. The room does not define itself by what it holds, but by what it allows to emerge. In this emptiness, your mind begins to clear, not as an effort, but as a response. The floor supports not just your body, but your thoughts, giving them space to settle, to slow, to soften. You feel your own weight, your own breath, with a clarity that surprises you. You become aware of your posture again, The way your back meets the air, the way your knees press into the mat, the way your hands rest lightly in your lap. The tatami encourages this awareness, not with force, but with invitation. The firmness beneath you offers just enough discomfort to prevent collapse, just enough softness to make stillness sustainable. In this space, the body finds alignment naturally. It is not told what to do, it remembers. And in that remembering, a quiet dignity returns. The lamp's glow grows steadier now, its flame burning lower but more constant. The air has calmed. No breeze moves the paper screens. The shadows have lengthened and thickened, becoming less like shapes and more like atmosphere. The floor beneath you darkens too, becoming not a surface, but a presence, a companion in the room's silence. You close your eyes briefly, and the texture remains in your awareness. The grid of weave, the warmth of compressed straw, the echo of every step taken across it before yours. When you open your eyes again, the world has not changed, and yet it feels deeper. The tatami no longer seems like flooring. It is terrain, it is ritual, it is memory woven into matter. You can imagine a samurai kneeling where you sit, adjusting his robes before sleep, his sword placed just so beside his bedding, his thoughts quiet not because he is idle, but because the space has shaped him to stillness. This is not sleep out of exhaustion. This is sleep arrived at through form. And as the shadows deepen further, your vision begins to yield to sensation. You feel the texture of the mat beneath your skin more than you see it. You hear the silence as a pressure in the air, gentle but full. The softness of the floor becomes not just comfort, but permission. To be still, to be safe, to be present. You are not preparing to lie down yet, but the process has begun. The room, the light, the floor, all are leading you inward. The tatami will hold your body while you rest, and the shadows will keep your secrets while you dream. There is nothing else to ask of this space, nothing it asks of you in return. It is simply here, waiting, breathing, remembering. You rise slowly from the mat, not because you must, but because the moment itself seems to suggest movement. The house does not rush you. It offers no signal, no announcement, only the steady pull of rhythm, a rhythm as old as the wood beneath your feet, as soft as the air that moves through the walls. You stretch your legs gently, allowing the tingling return of blood to warm your muscles. And then, almost instinctively, you turn toward the low wooden bench where the futon rests, folded and waiting, as it has waited every night before this one. Nothing here is prepared in haste. Nothing is tossed or thrown. Even sleep begins with a kind of ceremony. The gesture of unfolding is not simply mechanical. It is a transition, an inward bow. As you reach for the edge of the quilt, you feel the silence grow more attentive. You kneel beside the bench, and for a moment you do nothing but observe. The futon is layered with quiet care. The shikibuton, or sleeping mat, folded with its edges aligned. The cakebuton, or quilt, laid atop it in a bundle of soft cotton. And the pillow, small and firm, filled perhaps with buckwheat or beans, cradled in a clean cloth. Each piece is simple. There are no ruffles, no embroidery, no decoration. And yet, in their simplicity, they speak of reverence, not for appearance, but for function, for touch, for rest. You reach out and feel the surface of the quilt. The fabric is thick, cool, and clean. It smells faintly of sun and air and wood smoke, the scent of something that has lived, not just existed. Its weight in your hands feels balanced, like a tool well worn, shaped by use rather than novelty. Lifting the quilt with both hands, you unfold it gently onto the tatami, watching as it expands across the floor in a slow exhalation. It doesn't spring into place. It settles. It drapes. The weight of the cotton shifts like water poured from a ladle. Quiet, unhurried, whole. Then comes the mat beneath it, which you place carefully, smoothing the corners so they lie flush with the lines of the floor. There is no frame, no headboard, no box. The futon rests directly on the tatami, as the body will soon rest upon it. It is intimate contact, body to bedding, bedding to straw, straw to earth. Nothing is insulated. Nothing is separated. The room itself seems to dim slightly in response, as if bowing to the readiness of this new space. Even the shadows appear more generous. The pillow is last. You set it gently at the head of the mat, aligning it not with precision, but with familiarity, the way one places a bowl at the edge of a meal, or a brush at the corner of parchment. It is not grand, it is not indulgent, but it is enough, and in this house, enough is sacred. You pause, kneeling again, and take in the sight of the futon prepared, a resting place not just made, but created. There is no sense of vacancy now. The room feels fuller, as if it had drawn breath. The air changes slightly, not its scent, but its tone. The preparation of sleep has a gravity of its own. And now that gravity begins to hold you. The act of preparing a futon is not merely physical, it is mental. It quiets you. It slows the thoughts that often scatter in every direction at the end of the day. The weight of the blanket, the way the corners fold into themselves, the small sounds of fabric moving against fabric, they all pull your attention inward. You are no longer in the world of obligation or worry. You are here in the room with the light, the mat, the cotton, the hush. You are allowed to move slowly. You are encouraged to be deliberate. There is no reward for speed here. There is only the reward of presence. Outside, a breeze stirs, brushing the bamboo stalks near the garden wall. The paper screen behind you rustles slightly, and moonlight filters through in a broken pattern of leaves and light. The futon now catches that glow, its folds gently illuminated, its edges darkened in shadow. The shape of rest has been made visible. It is not a bed, it is not furniture, it is a gesture that says, you may lie down now, you may let go. And even if you are not yet ready to sleep, your body begins to understand the permission granted. The space is no longer waiting. It has arrived. Your hand passes over the quilt once more, smoothing it, sensing its density. You imagine the way it will feel against your chest, the way your legs will press into the cotton, the weight of your own breath rising and falling beneath it. The futon does not rise to meet you. It waits. It remains low, close to the earth. This humility is not lack, it is closeness. It brings your body nearer to the quiet of the floor, to the temperature of the room, to the breath of the house. It says, here you may dissolve into the night. The samurai who sleeps here would never toss themselves into bed. Rest is not collapse, it is transition. And so, even the futon is treated with care, unfolded with symmetry, aligned with the grain of the room, turned just slightly away from the doorway so that the soul, when dreaming, may not drift too far. These small considerations, orientation, shape, warmth, form a map of the night, a map the body can follow without language. Even in the silence, there is instruction. You imagine the weight of armor once worn in this room, the heaviness of robes folded with care, the movements of a warrior removing blade from belt, placing steel beside bedding, not as threat, but as ritual. The sword sleeps too, in its place. You glance to the side, where a low rack holds the katana and wakizashi, resting in their sheaths. They are not near the head, but not far either. close enough to remind, distant enough to release. Their presence is not intrusion, but witness. In the final moments before rest, the futon becomes something more than material. It becomes threshold. To lie down is to cross from the world of alertness to the world of softness, from the sharp edge of wakefulness to the rounded curve of dream. And so you do not rush. You remain kneeling beside it for a while longer, your fingers resting on the fabric, your breath now matching the stillness of the space around you. The room listens. The light has dimmed. The lamp's oil is nearly spent. Its flame flickers like a thought at the edge of sleep. The room has grown darker, but not cold. The warmth lingers in the fabric, in the straw, in your chest. You feel your heartbeat, slow, steady, present. There is no longer a line between you and the space. You are part of the futon now, part of its gesture, part of its invitation, and with that invitation comes rest. You lower yourself at last, easing your knees to the mat, turning your body as if turning a page. The blanket welcomes your weight. The floor receives your form. The pillow presses back against the base of your skull with a firmness that feels reassuring, like the hand of someone older, someone calm. You exhale. The futon responds with silence. It does not shift. It simply holds. There is no need to shift, no need to adjust. You are not trying to get comfortable. You already are. Your body has aligned itself not with the softness of modern bedding, but with the shape of rest. You are grounded. You are centered. You are low to the earth, as all living things must eventually be. And from that low place, you begin to rise, not upward, but inward. In this position, the mind begins to drift, not in leaps, but in slow circles. You hear the creak of the roof above you, the murmur of wind against the eaves, the almost imperceptible sound of a distant bell. And still, the futon holds. It does not flatten or rebound. It stays. It supports. It bears your body as if it were known. You are not falling asleep. You are being remembered. You think of the hands that stitched this blanket, the hands that filled it, the hands that folded and unfolded it through the seasons. It is not just yours. It is part of a lineage of those who rested, of those who waited, of those who survived the day and prepared for the next without knowing if it would come. The futon is not yours alone. It is ancestral. The act of lying here is not passive. It is active surrender, a choice to release, a willingness to enter stillness. And in that choice, something sacred unfolds. You are no longer preparing to sleep. You are already sleeping in spirit, even if your eyes remain open, even if the world has not yet disappeared behind lids and breath. You are halfway between. The futon teaches you how to lie down with grace, how to yield with dignity, how to become horizontal not in defeat, but in ritual. You are not falling, you are arriving, not sinking, but returning, to the earth, to silence, to yourself. And in this return, you are not diminished, you are restored. Soon the lamp will go out, and with it, the last outline of the room. But even in darkness, the futon will hold. The tatami will breathe. The house will remember. And your body, wrapped in cotton and shadow, will drift gently beyond thought, carried by centuries of sleep. And the night, ancient and slow, will welcome you home. The act of cleansing in the samurai household was never merely hygienic. It was devotional, intentional, rhythmic, and deeply rooted in centuries of embodied philosophy. As you rise from your futon, limbs still heavy with the softness of sleep, the morning light filters into the room in fractured slivers, slipping past the paper screens. Your breath carries the warmth of the dream realm still lingering in your chest, and each movement feels like a sacred offering. You do not rush. The day will not begin without you. Instead, you surrender to ritual, to the knowing that purity must be cultivated. Every gesture, the gathering of sleeves, the pivot of the foot, the room is a sanctuary not because of its form, but because of how you move within it. You step softly to the low basin set in the corner of the room. Its presence, humble yet commanding. A ceramic pitcher rests beside it, paired with a wooden ladle, and the faint scent of cypress wood rises like a prayer from the grain. The basin is not merely a vessel, it is a mirror, reflecting your posture, your presence, a return to stillness, a preparation for awareness. And as the first notes of the morning seep into your senses, you realize the day's true beginning is not measured by clocks, but by water. Your hands touch the pitcher, and you feel the smooth coolness of its surface, as if you were holding a stream paused in time, a river made solid. Its glaze is slightly uneven under your fingers, a trace of the artisan who shaped it, who once turned clay into something enduring. You lift it slowly, reverently, not wishing to disturb the silence that lingers in the corners of the room like breath unsaid. The water pours into the basin with a sound so gentle it doesn't startle. It soothes, like a lullaby remembered from childhood, like the first syllable of a chant. You dip your fingers into it, and the shock of cold is clean rather than cruel. It travels up your spine like a whisper of attention, calling your spirit to the surface. The sensation of water against skin opens something beneath thought, a memory of rivers, of rainfall, of being cradled in something larger than yourself. Droplets gather and fall from your fingers, their soft dripping weaving itself into the ambient hush of the house. It is not noise, it is punctuation in a poem that has no end, only breath between lines. Before cleansing your face, you pause, not out of hesitation, but out of ritual respect, a stillness learned, passed down, preserved. The samurai believed in the sanctity of beginnings, in the spiritual necessity of re-entering the world with clarity. To wash one's face was not simply to remove traces of sleep, it was a symbolic unveiling, a reawakening of the soul after its nightly voyage through dreams. You scoop the water carefully with both hands, cupping it as if it were moonlight, as if the entire dawn rested in your palms. The movement is slow, deliberate, almost sacred. You lift it toward your face, as one might offer sake to a shrine, reverently, steadily. The chill of the water does not shock, but enlivens. It kisses your skin and seeps into the spaces behind your eyes, tracing the hollows of your cheekbones. Your eyelids flutter shut in response, not as a defense, but as an opening. The waking has begun, not with noise or urgency, but with surrender to something older than memory. Beside the basin, a cloth, soft, woven, hand-hemmed with silent care. Its fabric carries the scent of sun-dried cotton and cedar shelves, and when you lift it, it responds like something alive. You press it to your cheeks, not to scrub, but to receive, letting it absorb the water like a companion, accepting your dreams. The towel does not dry so much as it listens. It holds what you release. In that quiet act of contact, you are reminded again that even the most mundane gestures contain echoes of devotion. The cloth holds the water holds the morning, and the morning, gently and without demand, holds you in return. Each element completes the other, each motion roots you deeper into the present, and the towel, folded now in your hands, becomes both witness and participant in this wordless dialogue between body and ritual. You roll your shoulders gently. The air feels different now. Cleaner, sharper. The cleansing was not just of the skin, but of the mind. Thoughts that had clung to the corners of your consciousness seemed to loosen and drift away. Like mist burning off in sun. You feel your feet beneath you. You feel the pulse in your fingertips. You feel ready. Next to the basin lies a small wooden tray with items aligned in quiet geometry. A comb carved from horn. These are not luxuries. They are invitations. You lift the comb and pass it through your hair with measured strokes, not to tame, but to attune. Each motion restores a piece of your order, aligning the inner world with the outer. You lean slightly to the side, reaching for the incense, and with a practiced hand you press a few grains into a tiny iron burner. The scent that rises is deep and grounding. Sandalwood, cedar, and a hint of smoke that feels ancient. It curls into the air slowly, lazily, as though it knows time is no longer a concern. You inhale. The aroma doesn't just fill the room. It enters you, travels into your chest, lingers behind your eyes. You move to change your robes. There is no wardrobe, no drawer. Your garments are folded with perfect simplicity on a wooden shelf. Linen over linen, dark over light. You choose with intuition, not fashion. Today feels like a day for quiet blues and greys. You lift the cloth with both hands, holding it against your body before donning it, as though asking permission to become someone new. Dressing is not disguise, it is declaration. With each layer you wrap, your movements slow even further. The belt finds your waist, and the knot finds its center. Your sleeves rest at just the right angle. The garments are neither tight nor loose. They are balanced, harmonious, measured. You become less aware of yourself as individual and more as shape, a form moving through the room in rhythm with tradition. There is a bowl of water outside, placed near the stepping stones of the garden. It waits beneath a camellia tree, where a small ladle rests upon a stone. You step outside, bare feet on wood. You scoop the water, this time to rinse your mouth. Not because of need, but to complete the ritual, to seal the cleansing. You swish gently, then spit, not onto the ground, but into the earth. The taste of water lingers, the taste of beginning. The cold has made your mind sharper now, but not faster, only clearer. You do not feel the need to speak. You do not feel the urge to plan. You are simply here, washed, robed, silent, ready to re-enter the world, not with noise. And attention, in this house, is the highest form of care. You return inside, but the world outside does not feel separate. It has entered with you, the scent of the air, the sound of the wind. You move toward the sitting mat with steadiness, and as you lower yourself, you realize something profound. Cleanliness is not the absence of dirt, it is the presence of intention. This moment will fade, yes. The incense will slowly collapse into embers, its last curls of smoke melting into the rafters. The basin's water will cool to stillness, untouched by another hand. The towel will dry and be folded once more in quiet reverence. But what remains is not what can be seen. The purity you have created lingers within you like breath held at the top of the lungs, silent but full. It is in your shoulders, which no longer carry the weight of dreams. It lives in your exhale, in the measured lift of your spine, in the way the cloth now embraces your shoulders like memory. It is the kind that seeps into the grain of your being and stays there, not in defiance of dirt. In each quiet ritual, the self is reassembled, fiber by fiber, until the body becomes the shrine it was always meant to be. This is where the spirit begins to steady. This is how the day roots itself before flowering. The samurai knew this, that discipline begins not in the sword, that courage is born not in battle, but in ritual, and that sleep, to be worthy, must be followed by waking with grace. Outside, the sky still hovers between indigo and grey. The world hesitates, caught in the hush before motion, where birds remain still, but you, wrapped in the scent of cedar and the memory of cold water. Your breath is steady, slow. Your senses are clean, not scrubbed, but clarified, like a lens. The inside of your skin feels different now, more receptive, more attuned. The slight shift of light, the distant rustle of unseen branches. You have begun, not with noise or alarm, but with reverence, not by command, but by cleansing. And so, even before the sun lifts itself above the horizon, even before the birds find their morning voices, you are already awake, not just in body, but in the quiet vastness of mind, in the still architecture of spirit. The inner space has been cleared, and from that clearing you will meet the day. The day has not yet begun, but you have. The armor rests beside you, silent and immense, its lacquered plates breathing with stories untold, its joints still humming with the residual tension of worn duty. In the quiet of the room, stripped of ceremony and spotlight, it becomes not a shield but a relic, a monument to the weight once carried. You removed it slowly, as though unraveling a poem in reverse, each clasp undone with deliberation, each knot loosened like a prayer. The sword, the shoulder guards, gave first their gentle creak, releasing echoes of discipline and storm. The cuirass followed, its drop to the floor a muted drumbeat, reverberating through the silence like the slow exhale of a temple bell. Unburdened, you feel the skin beneath your robes wake again, reminded of sensation beyond armor, beyond war, beyond the choreography of preparation. This shedding is not one of weakness, but of remembrance. With every piece removed, a layer of self returns. The spine straightens not from rigidity, but from relief. The chest, once compressed by plate and fabric, begins to rise fully, naturally, rediscovering the rhythm of breath untouched by caution. Your limbs, no longer molded by constraint, stretch with the hesitancy of freedom rediscovered. There is pain, not sharp, but ancestral, carried in the memory of tension held too long. As you move, the body does not groan in protest, but sings in recognition, its voice soft and low, like a koto plucked beneath moonlight. You sit in stillness, not because you must, but because you can. Your hands rest on your thighs, fingers spread and bare. Without gauntlets, the bones of your knuckles, the veins beneath the skin. The softness of your palms return to you like forgotten companions. These are the hands that once gripped steel, that blocked, parried, held weight with unwavering command. But tonight they tremble slightly, not from fear, but from the sudden presence of sensation. The hand becomes a symbol, a map of who you were and who you may now become. The armor lies where you placed it, and it watches you without judgment. It does not demand to be worn. It does not whisper of tomorrow. It merely exists, inert yet sacred, a companion that knows its role has ended. For now, the lacquered finish no longer glistens under sunlight, but absorbs candlelight in silent gratitude. You do not turn away from it. You bow toward it, honoring its service, its weight, and the lessons etched into every dent and scratch. You recognize that every mark in the metal is a mark left upon you, not on your skin, but within, etched in patience, pain, and perseverance. The room breathes with you. The wooden beams above seem to lean in slightly, protective and ancient, while the tatami beneath holds your form without resistance. In this space, stripped of armor and title, you meet yourself. Not the warrior, not the symbol, just the soul in flesh, the heartbeat beneath silence, the life beyond function. You listen to the slow movement of your breath, not as preparation, but as presence. Each inhale a thread pulled gently into being. Each exhale a surrender without loss. You are no longer in training or on guard. You are here, wholly and without defense. As you lower your body onto the futon, your muscles sing with the strange, sweet ache of return, not only from movement, but from vigilance, from containment, from the long discipline of holding back. The floor greets you not with softness, but with a firm truth, one that does not yield but accepts. It welcomes the whole of you, not just flesh and fatigue, but memory, breath, and weight. Your spine, released from its daily choreography, finds new length as if stretching into the forgotten sky of your inner world. Your shoulders widen and melt toward gravity, no longer braced against command or expectation. Your hips settle like boats into still water, steadied by the invisible currents of calm that rise from deep below. You are no longer carrying armor, title, silence. You are being held by something ancient, wooden, and wise. In that firm cradle of tradition and wood, you rediscover the weightlessness beneath burden, the release that only comes when one stops performing stillness and instead becomes it. Your thoughts slow, their edges blurred by the embrace of quiet. The storm of the day, decisions, drills, expectations, begins to settle like dust in still water. You do not fight sleep. You do not seek it. You allow it, the way a gate allows the wind to pass, not by opening, but by no longer resisting. The ceiling above becomes a canvas for memory, where images drift past not as structured stories, but as shifting fragments of lived moments. Colors bloom in your mind, soft greens of moss along temple stones, deep browns of wooden floors trodden by generations, flashes of steel against morning light. These are not visions you summon. They arrive gently, unannounced, like honored guests. You remember a sparring partner's shout, more rhythm than sound. You remember the warmth of rice after morning training, not just the taste, but the steam rising like incense. You remember the scent of oiled armor drying in the sun, metal absorbing fire and time. You remember and you release, not to forget, but to make room. The past does not vanish. It softens, folds itself beside you like a companion with no more demands, no more weight, only presence. You breathe into the center of your chest, where the armor once pressed hardest, and feel the unfamiliar softness spread. It is not weakness, this tenderness. It is a sign that you are still alive, that not all of you has hardened into duty. Beneath discipline lies something older, the right to rest, to forget for a moment the posture of the warrior, and to simply be. There is honor in silence too, not the silence of stoicism, but the silence of peace reclaimed. The lacquered helm, set aside with reverence, reflects a softened version of the candle's glow. Its curved surface, once polished to intimidate, now becomes the shape of humility. You trace its outline in thought, recalling how it once shielded you from more than arrows. It shielded you from doubt, from emotion, from the weight of your own story. Tonight, its silence is your mirror. In it, you do not see a warrior. You see a man who endured and who now chooses to feel. As your limbs surrender to the futon's firm embrace, you feel the body speaking back to itself. Each joint opens slightly. Each tendon remembers its natural curve. You do not instruct this return. You witness it, and in witnessing, you become participant in a ritual older than armor. The ritual of healing. The ritual of listening, not to command, but to rhythm. A rhythm that does not begin with a drum, but with the chest's steady rise. You do not speak. You do not need to. Every sound, the breath, the rustle of cloth, the creak of the house settling, is part of your language now. In the quiet, a dialogue unfolds between presence and past, between the body of today and the memories folded inside your shoulders. It is a language of sensation, not syllable, a conversation held in stillness. Your eyes rest on the ceiling once more, its wooden beams crossing like paths you've walked. Choices made, vows kept. You follow them upward, toward a darkness that does not threaten but enfolds. Sleep is not a descent, but a passage. A tunnel not to nothingness, but to another form of knowing. In that darkness, there is no loss, only the soft relinquishing of form. The world outside recedes. The garden's rustling fades into background rhythm, a lullaby hummed by the earth itself. You become weightless, but not adrift. Anchored by breath, you drift only inward, toward a sanctuary built not of stone or sword, but of surrender. You do not fall asleep. You are welcomed into it, like a guest returning to the ancestral home. Here, in this moment, with the armor beside you and the silence within, you understand something that no master could teach, that rest is not retreat, that softness is not surrender, that to sleep fully, deeply, is to carry the code not on your shoulders, but in your breath. A sleep like this is not forgetfulness. It is a vow whispered to yourself beneath the covers of night. The candle flickers, your heartbeat slows, and beneath the folds of night, beneath the quilt and the weight of your own becoming, you vanish, not in absence, but in presence, to complete, to name. You vanish into your wholeness, finally at peace with both the blade and the body that held it. The night is not empty for those who remain awake. Beyond the quiet of the futon, there exists another rhythm, subtle, persistent, and nearly imperceptible. It belongs to the watchers, the guardians, the silent figures who do not sleep, not because they resist it, but because their role demands attention long after the village sighs into slumber. These are the ones who see with more than eyes, who feel the breeze change direction, who notice the shift in scent when night animals pass. In their vigil, sleep becomes an offering to others, not a right of their own. Theirs is not insomnia, but devotion in motionless form. Time slows for them, becoming both tool and terrain. Their awareness, like still water, reflects everything and disturbs nothing. One such figure moves through the garden. His steps are measured, but not cautious, rather respectful. Each footfall blends with the earth, making no disturbance. The lantern in his hand glows faintly, the light filtered through oiled paper, so it never blinds the dark. His presence is known only to the shadows and the stones. As he walks, his mind does not wander. It is as still as the koi pond he circles, a pool that reflects both sky and soul. The gravel beneath his sandals shifts softly, offering a sound so delicate it seems woven from the same silence it briefly interrupts. His eyes, half-lidded, scan not for threat but for balance, for the subtle disruptions that only reveal themselves in calm. The house, from the outside, is a breathing thing. Paper walls expand and contract with the wind. The bamboo rustles, its slender trunks knocking gently like wind chimes without tone. Inside, sleepers dream. Outside, the watcher listens. His ears seek no threat. Not tonight. Instead, he listens for harmony, for signs that the world is in its rightful alignment, for silence that feels complete. His perception sharpens not in alarm, but in resonance. A dog bark miles away, the shifting rhythm of frogs, the soft shift of fabric behind a door. He hears them all, not as warnings, but as proof that night flows. He pauses beneath a tree. The moonlight spills through the leaves like liquid silver, tracing lines on the ground that move with the breeze. He places his hand on the bark, grounding himself. It is a ritual of contact. Man and tree, both rooted, both still. He does not speak. His breath is the only chant, and it is steady, the same breath he used in training, in combat, in meditation. Here, it is prayer. He closes his eyes momentarily, not to disengage, but to deepen. With every exhale, the bark's cool roughness presses into his skin like memory, a silent pact between two beings that endure. Far across the compound, another watchman lights incense. The smoke curls upward in spirals, disappearing into the rafters. The scent, cedar and dried plum, lingers just long enough to awaken memory. His fingers brush the edge of his sash, checking the knot. All is secure, not just the home, but the self. He leans against the post and closes his eyes, not to rest, but to extend awareness inward. Sleep is not required to dream. The mind floats gently when unburdened by thought, when rooted in breath and space. In that space, he communes not with gods or ghosts, but with the quiet self that only reveals itself in still hours. Inside the house, a sleeper stirs, not from discomfort, but from intuition. The primal sensing of being seen, of being held in the invisible embrace of care. He does not wake fully, but his body shifts. A leg straightens with the slow grace of uncoiling memory. A hand curls as if grasping something already gone. Beneath the soft tide of unconsciousness, he registers something ancient and wordless, the presence of another's vigilance. Outside, someone watches not from distance, but from devotion, and his body, trained through nights and years to interpret subtle cues, responds. He turns his face gently to the wall, not in retreat, but in surrender, the quiet yielding that only deep trust allows. The air around him thickens, not with fear but with the hush of assurance. He lets go more fully, drifting into that deeper current of sleep where the body becomes weightless, yet anchored by unseen eyes. The body knows when it is safe, not because it is told, but because it listens to the space around it. It senses the rhythm beyond the walls, the quiet shuffle of straw, the faint movement of a screen door, the pulse of another's breath in the night air. And in this rhythm, it finds its own. It synchronizes. The inner world softens. The heart steadies. Rest does not just occur. It deepens, thickens, embraces. Because the world beyond the eyelids feels cradled. Because someone is awake while others dream. Because silence has become sanctuary. The watchers do not crave thanks. In truth, they are most honored when their presence is unnoticed, when dreams flow uninterrupted, when silence stretches without end, when safety is assumed so deeply that it no longer requires name or notice. Their role is invisible and sacred precisely because it remains unspoken. They do not need recognition, for their service lies in creating the conditions in which others forget they ever needed protection at all. They are the breath between moments, the pause between inhale and exhale, the slender line that separates dream from danger. In stillness, they guard not only the perimeter of space, but the interior sanctum of vulnerability, the fragile peace that sleep demands, and which few notice until it is lost. Their discipline is not loud, it does not shine, it is not meant for story or glory. It is distilled into presence, into being fully, unwaveringly there. They do not stand apart from the world of dreams. They are the ones who weave its veil. Without them, sleep is shallow, wary, easily broken. With them, it becomes a full surrender, a descent into trust. In a house without watchers, rest is tentative, fragmented by invisible unease. In their shadowed care, rest becomes whole, not because danger is far, but because devotion stands close, silent and steady, holding the night in its palms. A fox crosses the outer path, its russet fur brushing the tall grass with a softness so gentle it barely parts the blades. One of the watchers, standing in the shadows of the veranda, notices, not with surprise, but with recognition. He does not move. Movement would disturb the moment, unravel its delicate thread. Instead, he breathes with the rhythm of the animal, attuned to its deliberate caution. Its careful nose, testing the wind, its sleek body carried by instincts older than language. The fox pauses at the edge of the garden, its golden eyes scanning the silent world with a knowing gaze that seems to see more than just shadows and scents. The watcher watches, not as a guardian, but as a witness. He smiles, faint and reverent, understanding that this creature is no interruption. It is a symbol, a silent emissary of balance, a reminder that the natural world too keeps vigil. The fox, like the watcher, traverses the night without seeking to dominate it. Its presence marks a continuum, the ongoing dialogue between silence and awareness, earth and spirit. Not everything that moves at night is a threat. Some beings are stories made flesh, messengers without message, old companions cloaked in fur and moonlight, who vanish as quietly as they appear. And in their vanishing, they leave behind not absence, but resonance, the kind that stirs old memory and affirms. The blurring of lines between the natural and the spiritual, the mundane and the sacred, especially beneath the silver watchfulness of the moon. The candle inside the corridor flickers once, its tiny body of flame dancing as if startled by a breath from some unseen realm. The watcher notices immediately, drawn not by alarm but by a quiet attunement, cultivated over many sleepless nights. He walks over in a single fluid movement, steps soft and deliberate, and adjusts the paper screen with care so that no draught can reach the flickering flame. The wind relents, the flame steadies, its wavering silhouette finding again its center. He bows to it, not from superstition, but from reverence, an embodied recognition that even the smallest source of light requires protection. Even light must be cradled. Even fire, for all its power, lives on the edge of vanishing. In the silence, he becomes its steward, a sentinel not of battle but of glow. It is the quietest flames that illuminate the most, not by brilliance, but by constancy, and he, its humble guardian, ensures that neither wind, nor time, nor forgetfulness will extinguish its glow. In that flame lives not only light, but memory, of other watchers, other nights, other fragile silences preserved like this one. And as he returns to his post, the flame behind him does not flicker again. His shift continues in silence. There is no boredom, no urgency, only time stretching long and even like a taut string on a biwa. Each second resonates through him, becoming part of his presence. He is not counting time, he is being time. For those who sleep, the night is a veil. For him, it is a mirror. In its reflection, he sees not just duty, but devotion, the sacred repetition of vigilance, a quiet honor that leaves no mark, but allows every dream to unfold unbroken. Before the first bird calls, before the light spills even a hint of warmth across the paper walls, he wakes, not abruptly, not with alarm, but with the slow precision of someone who belongs to the morning as much as he does to the night. His breath draws in, deep and silent, as the body remembers its roles, its rituals. The futon beneath him no longer cradles rest. It releases him into readiness. He rises not as one who has finished sleeping, but as one who answers a call beyond time. The air still holds the hush of night, but within him the first ripple of movement begins. That ripple grows into motion, yet retains stillness at its core, a quiet force pushing him toward the day not out of urgency, but out of clarity. He folds the quilt with reverence, not mechanically, but as the first gesture of gratitude. Every thread, every crease, remembers dreams now finished, gentle fragments of the inner world retreating into the fabric. He smooths the cloth slowly, with palms open, pressing memory into silence. This is not about tidiness. It is about continuity. It is about beginning with care and honoring what held the body in vulnerability. The room, like the mind, must begin the day clear, aligned. The futon returns to its place by the wall, now compact, but no less sacred. In the clearing of space, he creates the shape of intention, inviting order into both his home and his thoughts. Beside the wall, his armor waits, not worn, not ready, but present, like a companion who says nothing but sees everything. He does not rush to it. First comes the inner discipline, the calligraphy of routine written through movement, posture, and breath. He kneels on the tatami, spine erect, fingers resting lightly on his thighs. Breath in, hold, release. Each breath is a blade, sharpening attention. Each pause a moment to settle into the self. He does not seek motivation. He cultivates stillness. In that stillness, purpose finds him, not like a shout, but like the soft arrival of dawn. The sword lies sheathed on the low wooden rack. He reaches for it slowly, both hands encircling the lacquered scabbard with deliberate grace. He does not draw it. He holds it, weighs it, remembers its balance, its presence. This is not a weapon yet. It is a teacher, a partner, a lineage carried in steel, honed by generations of hands and hearts. His thumb rests on the tsuba, the guard, not to press, but to listen, to feel the silence between him and the blade. It speaks in stillness, echoing with discipline rather than destruction. Outside, the garden glows faintly with pre-dawn blue. Bamboo leaves shiver in early wind. The house is still sleeping, but within these walls, discipline stirs. He stands and steps into the center of the room. Each movement is careful, as though the air itself deserves respect. He lifts the blade and begins the first kata, not for battle, but for breath. The arc of the sword is not a threat, but a form of meditation. Steel glides through silence. Muscle and memory combine. He moves through space as if composing a silent poem that only the body understands. His foot pivots. The blade sweeps. The breath aligns. It is not a performance. There is no audience, only the body remembering the shape of alertness. The room becomes the world, the floor, the earth, the ceiling, the sky. There is no need to imagine enemies. There is only the challenge of precision, of grace without haste. Each cut is an offering, each return to stillness, a bow to the self, a recognition of how form and spirit intertwine when repetition is guided by mindfulness. Sweat forms not from effort, but from immersion. The practice is not repetition, it is revelation. The same forms reveal new truths. The same movements unfold deeper stillness. He is not improving, he is remembering. Beneath every kata lies a rhythm older than him, taught by teachers who bowed to mornings like this one. Their shadows stretch beside him now, in breath and gesture. He carries their memory not as weight, but as a current, one that flows through his limbs as if they are vessels of continuity. After the final movement, he stands still, blade down, eyes soft. The breath expands, not as a sigh, but as a root settling into the earth. He bows to the sword and returns it to the rack, not dismissed, but honored. The ritual is complete, not flashy, not loud, but full. What remains is the residue of presence, the quiet strength earned in silence, a readiness that does not clench, but rests gently in the bones. He prepares tea. The fire is lit with practiced grace, water set to boil, the motion of leaves falling into the cup, the silence while it steeps. This, too, is part of the morning ritual, a practice of attention. The scent of steam rises. The first sip anchors him. The warmth, subtle and direct, flows through his chest like a continuation of breath. Tea is not a break from discipline. It is its extension, a liquid stillness that reminds the body of gentleness within control. Through the shoshi screen, the sun begins to appear, gold and pale. It touches the sword hilt, the wooden floor, the edges of his robe. It does not break the spell, it completes it. The night has passed, and the self has returned, not transformed, but remembered. The weapon is quiet, the house is still, but within, the readiness hums, not tense, but aware. The day may bring conflict or peace, it does not matter. He has risen with intention, and in that intention, every act becomes part of the path. In the old traditions, morning was never just the beginning of time. It was the moment when one chose again, chose presence, chose discipline, chose the path. And with each choice, the samurai did not become something new. He returned more fully to what he had always been. The ritual is not about changing, it is about remembering. Morning is a mirror, and today, once again, he finds himself in its reflection. The blade rests now, not abandoned but released, placed back in its cradle, with the same reverence one might offer a sleeping child or an elder's final words. Its weight no longer resides in his hands, but it lingers in the room. A vibration folded into the corners of the tatami, into the spaces between walls and breath. The silence it leaves behind is not emptiness, but fullness, the kind that follows a ritual completed with intention. Outside, the first light unspools itself slowly across the tiled rooftops like thread pulled gently through silk. Inside, another practice begins, one softer, less visible, but equally steeped in meaning. The preparation of a simple meal, not to celebrate the dawn, nor to indulge the body, but to sustain the vessel that carried the night's discipline. In the small domestic rituals of food and warmth, a different kind of blade is wielded, one of presence, of tenderness sharpened by attention. He steps into the kitchen, a space no larger than the reach of his outstretched arms, where steam and stillness coexist like old acquaintances. The light here is gentler, filtered through rice paper screens and the breath of morning. No fire roars, no clatter disrupts the air. Instead, there is the choreography of care, each motion unfolding not from habit, but from reverence. He lifts the pot with both hands, feeling the weight of the water as though it were a memory being carried from one life to the next. The ladle dips slowly, its surface catching the reflection of his face, a momentary mirror of calm. He rinses the rice again and again, watching the clouded water swirl away like forgotten dreams, until clarity remains, in the grains, in the bowl, in himself. This is not about purity, it is about readiness. The rice, like the man, must first shed its fog before it can soften and nourish. The fire crackles softly beneath the earthen pot, its heat measured, its rhythm patient. Nothing here is hurried, not the rising steam, not the softening of grain, not the breath of the man who watches without watching. The miso broth simmers nearby, its scent deep and grounding, a quiet pulse of umami and earth that threads its way through the coolness of the morning air. He stirs slowly, each circle of the ladle a prayer made visible, a spiral of care. One scallion lies ready for slicing. He holds it like one might hold a scroll of poetry, and with a blade as sharp as silence, he carves it into green threads. The cuts are not for aesthetics, but for respect. The fish, marinated the night before in soy and calm, is unwrapped and laid on the clay grill, its skin still holding the memory of salt air and moonlight. As it cooks, its scent does not dominate, but joins the quiet chorus of breakfast unfolding. Steam rises now in ribbons, curling in the cold air like incense. Slow, meditative, ephemeral. It does not command attention, but invites it. The kitchen becomes a shrine not to luxury, but to simplicity, to warm rice in a clay pot, to broth that holds the history of miso barrels aged in silence, to a piece of fish prepared without urgency. The textures speak as much as the flavors. The weight of the bowl, the warmth of steam on the skin, the rough edge of wood beneath bare feet. Each sense is called, but gently. Each sensation is held, not consumed. The act of preparing breakfast is not an interruption to the morning. It is the continuation of it, where sword met air, now hand meets rice. Where breath steadied movement, now it steadies flame. He sets the bowls with the care of a priest placing offerings. The rice is shaped with a gentle scoop, the soup poured with attention to its color and its heat. The fish is laid with the grain of its own flesh, never against it, never torn. The chopsticks rest on their ceramic stand, a small crane frozen in flight, wings outstretched as if to remind him that all things, even stillness, are always moving inward. The table is not crowded, only what is needed is present, and that is enough. He does not seek to impress. There is no audience, only the moment and the meal, and the quiet echo of steel still humming somewhere behind the walls. He does not sit immediately. He bows first, to the food, to the hearth, to the morning. His posture speaks what words could not: gratitude, humility, presence. In that bow he offers something of himself back to the day, as if saying, I receive, and I remember. When he sits, it is not to feed, but to continue. The first mouthful is taken slowly, rice soft and warm against the cold of dawn, miso earthy and alive on the tongue. He chews without rush, not to delay, but to honor. Each grain is a story, each flavor a teacher. The body begins to warm from within, not from fullness, but from recognition. He is not eating to begin the day. He is returning to it with every breath, every bite. The warmth of the meal settles slowly into his core, like sunlight absorbed into stone, patient, silent, enduring. It does not race to fill him, but takes its time, seeping into joints and breath, into memory and marrow. As the flavors fade from the tongue, they remain in the body, not as taste, but as presence. His hands, now folded lightly in his lap, recall the rhythm of earlier gestures, the slicing of scallions, the lift of the spoon, the precise folding of the futon, the arc of the blade. None of it feels separate. The morning has unfolded as a single gesture, each act nested inside the next like waves within waves. In this stillness, after eating, he does not feel full. He feels placed, as if the world, quiet and wide, has laid him gently at the center of its palm. Outside, the garden is no longer a hint behind the paper walls. It has become the other half of the room. A crow calls, its cry long and echoing, sharp against the hush. The bamboo sways gently, whispering in rhythms only the wind understands. The pale sun, now climbing softly, stretches across the threshold, casting shifting light that dances across the floor. He watches, not passively, but with a presence sharpened by stillness. The meal did not end when the last bite was taken. It continues here, in this gaze, in this breath. The warmth in his belly now reaches his fingertips. There is no separation between food and air, between skin and sky. The house does not divide him from the world. It holds him in dialogue with it. When the last sip of tea is gone and the bowls sit empty but honored, he does not rise. He remains seated a little longer, palms resting on the polished wood table, fingertips tracing invisible circles into the grain. His gaze drifts over the ceramic crane, the curve of the lacquered bowls, the silent steam now fully vanished. But more than these objects, he notices the space between them, the quiet, the invisible architecture of attention that holds everything in place. He feels no urge to begin the next task, no compulsion to move forward. He is not behind. He is exactly where he is meant to be, and the quiet is not emptiness. It is recognition. When he finally begins to clear the table, he moves not with effort, but with softness. The cloth slides across the surface like wind over water. Each item is returned to its place as if it were being thanked. The bowls are rinsed, the chopsticks dried and tucked into their wooden case. Even the hearth is cooled gently. Coals stirred softly until they return to ash and memory. The kitchen does not lose warmth when the ritual ends. It gains quietness, a stillness that feels like gratitude exhaled. The space has witnessed a ceremony, and it has received it with grace. And now it rests, full but unburdened, like a page after the poem has been written. He slides open the wooden screen door and steps into the garden, crossing the threshold without thought, without transition. The tatami gives way to stone, and the chill of morning air brushes his cheeks like a reminder that the world is alive and moving. The scent of pine drifts toward him, mingled with the damp breath of earth. He does not walk with destination. He walks to be present. Each footstep is a return. He passes the pond where the koi glides silently beneath still water, and pauses beneath the old pine tree whose roots have lived longer than his name. The sky above is a pale, widening blue, holding the weight of nothing, yet offering everything. He looks upward, not for answers, but for rhythm, not to measure the day, but to meet it. And in this standing, this breathing beneath the tree, something aligns. There is no accomplishment, no goal, no conflict, no command. Just a man who has eaten his meal, sheathed his sword, bowed to the earth, and stepped into the fullness of morning. He feels the world not as something to conquer or guard, but as something to receive. And in this receiving, his strength grows, not in muscle, not in power, but in stillness. The same stillness that lived in the miso broth, in the rising steam, in the sweep of his blade. The day lies ahead. But for now, he stands in the center of it, not as a warrior, not as a master, not as a name, but as a presence, rooted, awake, nourished. The garden, now fully bathed in soft gold, breathes quietly around him. Leaves flicker in the sunlight like small flags of peace, and shadows shift across the stones with the grace of forgotten time. He turns away from the pine tree slowly, not out of reluctance, but with the measured calm of one who knows that the ritual does not end. It merely continues in a new form. The steps he takes back toward the house are not retraced. They are reimagined. Each footfall over wood and stone carries with it the imprint of all that has come before. The silence of the sword, the warmth of the rice, the breath beneath the branches. Morning is no longer something he moves through. It is something that now moves within him. Inside, the house has changed, not visibly, but subtly. The energy has settled, like snow after wind or water in a bowl. He steps across the tatami not to perform, but to honor the next silence. There is no need for words. The bowls are clean, the blade is sheathed, the tea is gone. But the presence remains, thick in the air, soft on the skin, humming beneath the floorboards. He sits again, not out of routine, but to listen, to receive. His hands rest on his thighs, palms open, fingers loose, as if to say, I am not holding on to anything. And in that gesture, he is holding everything. The breath slows. The thoughts grow sparse. What lingers is not analysis, but echo. The sound of the morning lives on, not as noise, but as vibration. The hiss of the kettle, the soft slide of rice against ceramic, the whisper of bamboo in the wind. These are the true teachings, the subtle ones, not shouted, but offered, not demanded, but received. He closes his eyes, and in the darkness behind his lids, the light persists, pale, steady, alive. He is not meditating, he is remembering. He is not seeking stillness, he is returning to it. The rituals have passed, but they are not gone. They shaped the vessel in which he now sits. Quieter, yes, but deeper too. The sword no longer rests in his grip, but its discipline rests in his bones. The rice no longer steams before him, but its warmth glows in his center. The day awaits him beyond these walls, but the morning lingers here, in breath, in stillness, in the fibers of his robe, in the softened soles of his feet. The silence is no longer empty, it is ripe. And in this fullness, he begins again, not with motion, but with presence, not with ambition, but with remembrance. He rises again, not abruptly, but with the grace of someone moving through water. The floor beneath his feet is warm from earlier fire, now reduced to embers, yet still speaking in heat. He moves with intention, slow and exact, toward the window. Sliding the screen just slightly, he lets the breeze enter, not to disturb the stillness, but to become part of it. The wind brings the smell of pine, damp stone, and distant wood smoke, reminders that the world continues, and that peace does not require isolation, only attention. Standing there, framed by paper and sunlight, he does not think about the duties to come. He does not brace for the day. Instead, he acknowledges it like one acknowledges a friend, with warmth, not expectation. The samurai's discipline is not in resisting the future, but in arriving fully to each moment as it unfolds. And so, He watches the light shift across the floor, turning shadow into shape, into story. There is no need to narrate. The presence is enough. He returns to the hearth not to cook, but to close it, gently, with the curved tool he uses to draw coals back into stillness. Ash rises in a soft cloud and settles again, not erased, but transformed. There is beauty even in the closing of flame, in the quieting of things once bright. He places the cover over the pot, brushes the floor where his footprints have left warmth. These actions are not chores, they are conclusions, rendered with the same care as beginnings. The room breathes around him. It remembers. The walls hold stories not spoken but practiced, in the pattern of his movement, in the rhythm of folding, in the silence between acts. Everything within this space has witnessed him, not as warrior or man, but as someone who returns, again and again, to the center, the place where stillness and action meet, where breath becomes offering. He retrieves a cloth and gently polishes the sword's sheath, not for shine, but for continuity. The ritual is in the repetition. His fingers trace the lacquer, the threads of silk wrapped firm and neat. He does not need to unsheath it. Its presence, attended to with care, is enough. It remains beside him, not as threat, but as memory of motion, of strength, of all that has passed quietly, without needing to be named. He takes one last sip of cool tea, now silent in the cup, its warmth transferred fully to him. The final swallow marks the true closing of morning, not as an ending, but as a seal, like wax on parchment, like the final stroke of a brush completing the character for peace. He places the cup down, not heavily, not lightly, just enough to let the wood know it is time. As he steps outside once more, the light is no longer gold, but white, clear and full. The garden has opened entirely, and the crows are gone. Only the rustle of leaves remains, only the hush of mid-morning air. He does not walk away from the house. He carries it with him, its silence, its rituals, its quiet fire. They remain in his pace, in the tilt of his head, in the softness behind his gaze. The warrior does not leave the temple. He becomes it. He moves through the gate without fanfare. The world beyond awaits, unchanged yet entirely new. He walks not to conquer, not to perform, but to meet it, step by step, breath by breath. Every act now will carry the weight of morning silence. Every motion, the echo of soft footsteps over tatami, the whisper of steam rising, the slow return of the blade to its rest. This is how a samurai greets the day, with the calm of one who has already bowed to its beginning. And as he walks, even the birds do not startle. Even the wind moves with him. The world does not rush. It waits, just long enough for his foot to land, his shoulder to turn, his mind to open. In this stillness, in this farewell to morning, there is no finality, only rhythm, only return, and the silence, once again, begins to speak. The garden, now fully bathed in soft gold, breathes quietly around him. Leaves flicker in the sunlight like small flags of peace, and shadows shift across the stones with the grace of forgotten time. He turns away from the pine tree slowly, not out of reluctance, but with the measured calm of one who knows that the ritual does not end. It merely continues in a new form. The steps he takes back toward the house are not retraced. They are reimagined. Each footfall over wood and stone carries with it the imprint of all that has come before. The silence of the sword, the warmth of the rice, the breath beneath the branches. Morning is no longer something he moves through. It is something that now moves within him. Inside, the house has changed, not visibly, but subtly. The energy has settled, like snow after wind or water in a bowl. He steps across the tatami not to perform, but to honor the next silence. There is no need for words. The bowls are clean, the blade is sheathed, the tea is gone. But the presence remains, thick in the air, soft on the skin, humming beneath the floorboards. He sits again, not out of routine, but to listen, to receive. His hands rest on his thighs, palms open, fingers loose, as if to say, I am not holding on to anything. And in that gesture, he is holding everything. The breath slows, the thoughts grow sparse. What lingers is not analysis, but echo. The sound of the morning lives on, not as noise, but as vibration. The hiss of the kettle, the soft slide of rice against ceramic, the whisper of bamboo in the wind. These are the true teachings, the subtle ones, not shouted, but offered, not demanded, but received. He closes his eyes, and in the darkness behind his lids, the light persists, pale, steady, alive. He is not meditating, he is remembering. He is not seeking stillness, he is returning to it. The rituals have passed, but they are not gone. They shaped the vessel in which he now sits. Quieter, yes, but deeper too. The sword no longer rests in his grip, but its discipline rests in his bones. The rice no longer steams before him, but its warmth glows in his center. The day awaits him beyond these walls, but the morning lingers here, in breath, in stillness, in the fibers of his robe, in the softened soles of his feet. The silence is no longer empty, it is ripe, and in this fullness he begins again, not with motion, but with presence, not with ambition, but with remembrance. He rises again, not abruptly, but with the grace of someone moving through water. The floor beneath his feet is warm from earlier fire, now reduced to embers, yet still speaking in heat. He moves with intention, slow and exact, toward the window. Sliding the screen just slightly, he lets the breeze enter, not to disturb the stillness, but to become part of it. The wind brings the smell of pine, damp stone, and distant wood smoke, reminders that the world continues, and that peace does not require isolation, only attention. Standing there, framed by paper and sunlight, he does not think about the duties to come. He does not brace for the day. Instead, he acknowledges it like one acknowledges a friend, with warmth, not expectation. The samurai's discipline is not in resisting the future, but in arriving fully to each moment as it unfolds. And so, he watches the light shift across the floor, turning shadow into shape, into story. There is no need to narrate. The presence is enough. He returns to the hearth, not to cook, but to close it, gently, with the curved tool he uses to draw coals back into stillness. Ash rises in a soft cloud and settles again, not erased, but transformed. There is beauty even in the closing of flame, in the quieting of things once bright. He places the cover over the pot, brushes the floor where his footprints have left warmth. These actions are not chores, they are conclusions, rendered with the same care as beginnings. The room breathes around him, it remembers. The walls hold stories not spoken but practiced, in the pattern of his movement, in the rhythm of folding, in the silence between acts. Everything within this space has witnessed him, not as warrior or man, but as someone who returns, again and again, to the center, the place where stillness and action meet, where breath becomes offering. He retrieves a cloth and gently polishes the sword's sheath, not for shine, but for continuity. The ritual is in the repetition. His fingers trace the lacquer, the threads of silk wrapped firm and neat. He does not need to unsheath it. Its presence, attended to with care, is enough. It remains beside him, not as threat, but as memory of motion, of strength, of all that has passed quietly without needing to be named. He takes one last sip of cool tea, now silent in the cup, its warmth transferred fully to him. The final swallow marks the true closing of morning, not as an ending, but as a seal, like wax on parchment, like the final stroke of a brush completing the character for peace. He places the cup down, not heavily, not lightly, just enough to let the wood know it is time. As he steps outside once more, the light is no longer gold, but white, clear and full. The garden has opened entirely, and the crows are gone. Only the rustle of leaves remains, only the hush of mid-morning air. He does not walk away from the house. He carries it with him. Its silence, its rituals, its quiet fire. They remain in his pace, in the tilt of his head, in the softness behind his gaze. The warrior does not leave the temple. He becomes it. He moves through the gate without fanfare. The world beyond awaits, unchanged yet entirely new. He walks not to conquer, not to perform, but to meet it, step by step, breath by breath. Every act now will carry the weight of morning silence. Every motion, the echo of soft footsteps over tatami, the whisper of steam rising, the slow return of the blade to its rest. This is how a samurai greets the day, with the calm of one who has already bowed to its beginning. And as he walks, even the birds do not startle. Even the wind moves with him. The world does not rush. It waits, just long enough for his foot to land, his shoulder to turn, his mind to open. In this stillness, in this farewell to morning, there is no finality, only rhythm, only return, and the silence, once again, begins to speak. The sky begins to dim, not abruptly, but as if exhaling. Light softens into the folds of dusk, and the world around the samurai turns inward once more. The warmth of the day releases its final breath across the garden stones, and shadows lengthen with grace. The faint gold of the horizon bows to indigo, and birds fall silent, their flight slowing as if respecting the calm descent into evening. He walks slowly now, not out of fatigue, but with the calm of someone who understands that endings are not to be hurried. The energy of the day retreats without resistance, like a tide sliding gently from the shore. It leaves no vacuum, only space, and into that space, silence seeps again. His sandals pressed lightly into the earth as he returns to the threshold of his home. The door, opened with a whisper, reveals a room dimly touched by the last embers of light. He steps inside, removing his footwear with the same care one might offer a sacred object. Evening is not an afterthought. It is another ceremony, a descent not into darkness, but into reflection. The tatami welcomes him again, the woven floor warmed by memory, not fire. The house breathes slowly now, mirroring his own rhythm, as if both structure and soul have aligned in quiet communion. The air inside carries a coolness, a sigh from open eaves, mingling with the scent of burned cedar and folded linen. He changes robes, not for comfort, but for continuity. The garments of day are folded neatly, imbued with the scent of movement, sun, and effort. The evening robe, softer, looser, carries with it the weight of dreams and solitude. Slipping into it is not mere preparation for sleep, but an invocation of the self that exists beyond function. In this attire, he is not the warrior, the host, the practitioner. He is simply the one who remains when all roles are set aside. Cloth against skin becomes a boundary between the world and what lies within. The fabric flows with his movement like a memory remembered gently, each fold embracing him with the patience of silence itself. In the center of the room, the light of a single candle flickers to life. Its glow dances upon the walls, casting slow-moving silhouettes that blur the line between presence and memory. He sits before it, cross-legged, spine tall, hands resting on knees. The ritual of evening does not require words. The flame speaks enough, in warmth, in movement, in the way it brightens only what is near, leaving the rest to shadow. He watches without desire, without direction. There is no need to analyze the day. Its lessons have already entered the body, woven into each gesture, each silence. The flicker reflects in his eyes, and for a moment he feels as though he too is flickering, part flame, part shadow, entirely present. The sword remains undisturbed on its rack. Unlike the mornings, it is not a source of readiness now. It is a witness, a silent guardian of the darkened hours. He does not look at it for strength, but for stillness. The sheath reflects the candlelight in slivers, offering not intensity, but reminder that peace, too, has form. That presence, even in rest, can hold as much weight as action. It is not sleep that he prepares for. It is surrender, not as defeat, but as release. The warrior does not sleep to forget the day, but to allow it to settle deep into the bones. His hand passes lightly over the lacquered curve, a gesture that bridges all his past mornings to this quiet now. The candle burns lower, but the room feels no smaller. If anything, the diminishing flame expands the silence, inviting the samurai further into stillness. Shadows lean longer across the floor, merging into one another until only suggestion remains. The outline of a cushion, the curve of a blade, the edge of a sliding door. In this softness, he breathes deeply. There is nothing left to complete, and so every breath becomes a full return. To the self, to the rhythm of the unseen, to the lull of night. He pours water into a small basin, the sound gentle as silk falling. The cloth he dips into it is worn but clean, imbued with years of use. With slow care, he washes his face, not to remove grime, but to cleanse the veil between day and dream. The coolness awakens the skin even as it signals rest. It is the final gesture of transition. Water that once coursed through rivers now touches his brow, and in that brief contact, time bends. Yesterday's mountain spring meets tonight's quiet ritual. He moves through the house with the care of one tending a sleeping child. Doors are slid shut gently, lamps extinguished without haste. There is no need for alarm. The darkness does not frighten him. It welcomes him. It is not emptiness, but the fullness of all that is unspoken. He knows that in the unseen, things are not lost. They are held in trust. Memory, sensation, even fear, all drift gently here within the hush of unlit rooms. Before he lies down, he kneels once more, not to pray in words, but in posture, the spine aligned, the hands resting, the eyes softened. It is a bow offered not to a god, but to the day itself, to its gifts and trials, to the emotions that passed like weather, to the stillness that held through it all. His body remembers what the mind does not articulate, that gratitude need not be spoken to be real. The futon, carefully unrolled, welcomes him back like a returning wave. Its familiar softness yields beneath him, not with indulgence, but with understanding. He lowers himself slowly, as if descending into memory. The blanket drawn over him holds more than warmth. It carries the scent of cedar and seasons, of summer rains and winter fires, of mornings both distant and recent. The The world outside recedes, but the inner world brightens, lit now by the pulse of presence. He does not chase dreams, he opens the door to them. The mind, no longer burdened by choice or commentary, drifts gently, guided by breath and memory. The candle, now a nub, flickers once, then steadies, its final glow mirroring the calm just before sleep takes him. Outside, a wind stirs the trees, their leaves whispering like voices from long ago. And within, the samurai rests, not escaped from the world, but embraced by it. Night folds in around him like fabric, like a houri drawn close over the chest. Its weight is not heavy, but grounding. In this softness, there is clarity. The clarity of endings, of completion, of cycles honored rather than resisted. He does not resist sleep. He greets it as he would a master, or a mirror, or the moon. In the dark, the house is alive, not with noise, but with presence. The walls remember. The floor remembers. Every breath he takes etches memory into the wood, the paper, the stone. Long after he has drifted, the silence remains, watching, holding, becoming part of him, even as he slips into dreams beyond this world. Sleep, for the samurai, is not a severing, it is a return, to a place untouched by sword or speech, a place where form dissolves and only rhythm remains, the rhythm of wind through trees, of breath through lungs, of time through silence. And in that rhythm he disappears, not lost, but found again, in shadow, in stillness, in peace. In every quiet house, when the rest sleep, there are those who remain, gentle silhouettes who breathe in stillness and exhale peace. They are the servants of the night, the stewards of rest. They move not to disturb, but to protect. Each gesture, each breath, each placement of foot or fold of cloth becomes an act of devotion. Their presence is like incense, nearly imperceptible, yet it fills the air with something sacred. These are not mere tasks. They are rituals, older than memory, softer than silence itself. Outside, beyond the doors of paper and the garden framed in shadows, a watchman walks beneath the moon. His steps do not echo, his eyes do not wander. He is not there to see, but to feel. The rhythm of his body follows a cadence older than clocks, one bound to the stars and to the breath of the earth. His duty is not action, but presence, and presence, in the night, is its own kind of armor. He is the guardian, not of danger, but of peace. Inside, a maid folds the night with her hands, blankets drawn tight, pillows placed like offerings. Her fingertips know the texture of each thread, each fiber softened by dreams long since past. She breathes in the scent of sleep, cedar, rice, straw, human warmth, and remembers whose bed is where by intuition alone. Her service is not mechanical, it is maternal, spiritual. Each fold carries intention, a silent wish for undisturbed dreams. The Ingawa, that narrow border between house and garden, is swept not to remove dirt, but to erase the presence of the day. The broom speaks against the wood in hushed tones, whispering the language of reverence. The servant who guides it understands that dust is not the enemy. Noise is in every arc of the bristles, in every retreating speck of ash. He offers the house another breath of stillness. In the kitchen, fire is both extinguished and preserved. The kettle sings a lullaby of steam. It does not boil, it hums. Nearby, a cloth is folded. A cup is rinsed in silence. The kitchen does not sleep, but it bows its head, acknowledging the sanctity of the hour. A servant sits on a stool by the embers, watching them settle, ensuring warmth remains beneath the ash like a memory just below the surface of sleep. A boy, eyes wide, follows the path of an older attendant. He learns not through instruction, but through osmosis, from the glide of a sleeve, the patience of a breath, the reverent turning of a door handle. This education is sacred. There are no scrolls, only motion, no commands, only quiet repetition. He learns that to serve the night is not to do, but to be. In the outer garden, a gardener tends to rocks no one will see. He places them not for aesthetics, but for flow, of water, of chi, of presence. The koi ripple past, slow and golden. The moonlight bends over the leaves, and in that light, the gardener becomes invisible, indistinguishable from the calm he tends. He shapes tranquility with his hands. It is a sculpture no one notices, yet all feel. Screens are mended when torn, not tomorrow, but tonight. A craftsman, called only when needed, arrives in silence. His tools are small, precise. His hands move not quickly, but flawlessly. He does not restore what was, but renews what will be, ensuring the barrier between dream and daylight remains whole. His work is unseen, but his touch is everywhere. Underneath the house, where shadow becomes coolness, a man tends to the last fire of the day. His fingers trace the lines of ash, interpreting the language of ember and coal. He is not a stoker of flames, but a listener. To fire, to silence, to the architecture of breath in the deep hours. His task is invisible, but the warmth of morning will owe him its comfort. Along the walls a servant drifts, fingertips grazing the grain of wood, the weave of screens. He does not clean, he communes. The home speaks through textures, and he replies with quiet, careful touch. He blesses every plank he passes, not with prayer, but with presence. Bells at the edge of the property swing in the faintest breeze. Their chimes are not warnings, but whispers, a language of metal and wind. A nearby listener identifies the tone. Tonight it is clear. The house is safe. Even the air is still. And in that confirmation, he returns to his place without a word. A clerk records the day's final thoughts in ink barely visible. His script is tight, beautiful. His hands do not tremble, even though they have written all night. The ledgers are not for history. They are for continuity, proof that each hour was held, witnessed, honored. Nothing is forgotten in this house, not even silence. In the storage shed, where firewood is kept dry and the world is forgotten, a servant sits in stillness, his body unmoving, his breath so faint it disappears into the walls. He chants without sound, prays without language. He is the anchor that holds the rest in place, and the house, sensing his steadiness, breathes easier. These acts, folding, sweeping, walking, watching, may seem small, but they shape the entire space of sleep. They are the sentinels of stillness, the unnamed architects of peace. The samurai may rest, but it is because these souls do not. They are the dream keepers. And when, at last, they too lower themselves into rest, it is with the satisfaction of having guarded not just a house, but a world made of breath, of pause, of the music silence makes when honored. Elsewhere, in the quiet home, figures remain awake. Servants move like drifting smoke, tending to the coals, folding what must be folded, ensuring no flame lingers unwatched. Each step they take is measured not in speed, but in grace, as if aware that the silence itself is sacred and fragile. They do not speak, for their presence is the final thread in the fabric of the house's stillness. The floorboards, polished by repetition, remember their footsteps like lullabies. Doors of rice paper shift with the wind, but never creak. Mats are straightened, not for order, but for respect. These custodians of silence guard the perimeter of sleep as surely as the samurai once guarded the threshold of his lord. Their vigilance is not martial, but reverent, a devotion to the fragile sanctity of rest. Outside, one lone watchman makes a circuit of the grounds. His footfalls, soft against the stones, are steady as breath. The rhythm of his patrol is not dictated by urgency, but by the clock of the stars. He carries no lantern. Only his ears are lit, tuned to the faintest stir of wind or beast, to the subtle song of the crickets, to the brush of wind against paper walls. The wooden gate he passes, twice an hour, does not cry out with its hinges. Everything has been maintained for quietness, for dignity, for the sacred veil of night. These servants do not sleep so others may surrender. They are the keepers of peace, the guardians of the invisible, where the sword does not cut but shelters. In a rear chamber, a maid folds blankets with deliberate care, aligning each edge with gentle precision. Her fingers memorize the texture of cotton worn soft by time, and the scent of each futon guides her as surely as names. She knows which blanket belongs where, not because she was told, but because her senses have been trained to read the nuances of fabric and fragrance. Each fold she creates is both practical and ceremonial, a gesture of devotion to the unseen order of the night, and a final benediction before sleep settles into every corner. Another servant sweeps the ingawa, the wooden veranda that frames the garden, not for cleanliness, but to erase the footprints of the day. Under moonlight, he moves with grace, his broom whispering across the wood like a painter's brush on silk. Each stroke is deliberate, each motion a kind of prayer. His labor is not to disturb the night, but to prepare it, to make it whole again. In his movements lives the philosophy that nothing is too small to be sacred. By the kitchen hearth, a kettle is kept warm but never boiling. Its presence is not to serve tea, but to offer the reassurance of readiness, should wakefulness arise. The steam rises like incense in the dim light, curling upward into the beams above. Its scent lingers gently, roasted rice, worn iron, faint jasmine. It is a silent companion to the deepening stillness, a promise that some part of the house remains awake, attentive, kind. The kitchen, though asleep, breathes with the quiet endurance of those who love without needing to be seen. A young boy, barely old enough to serve, watches his elder move through the hall. He learns by silence, by gesture, by reverence. No one teaches him in words, yet every movement he witnesses writes its lesson onto his growing soul. He notices how the elder's sleeves don't flutter when passing through tight spaces, how his feet never disturb the edge of a tatami. He understands that night has a rhythm, and he's beginning to feel it, not with intellect, but with breath. Within the garden, a breeze stirs the bamboo leaves, and a gardener, still at his task, places stones to redirect the flow of water in the koi stream. He does not look up. His trust is complete. In the moonlight, in the house, in the discipline of tending even what no one will see by morning. He works for stillness itself, shaping the invisible architecture of night. His hands are calloused, but his touch is gentle. Each stone, each ripple, speaks of patience beyond words. The paper screens are repaired quietly when torn, with glue made of rice and brushes finer than hair. The artisan who mends them comes only at night. His hands move as if sewing dreams together, transparent barriers between the waking and the resting. He sees each panel not as wall, but as skin, a thin membrane that holds the breath of the home, and he tends it with reverence. Each patch is a soft signature, a hidden grace, beneath the house where coolness lives in the foundation. Charcoal embers are banked slowly, carefully, to hold their warmth until morning. The servant who tends this task does not speak to others. His role is solitary, his intimacy with fire absolute. He listens to the coals as one listens to breath, for shifts in rhythm, for the language of heat. With a slender iron rod, he nudges ash and ember into harmonious rest. In the narrow corridors, the scent of hinoki wood and tatami lingers. A servant brushes his sleeves along the walls, not out of habit, but as communion. The house is alive, and touch is how one listens. He has walked this hallway 1,000 times, and still greets each board like a friend. The grain of wood beneath his palm is not decoration. It is memory carved in silence. At the perimeter of the property, bells hang from the gateposts, not to chime, but to watch. The slightest movement of air makes them sing. A servant hears their tone change, and knows whether it is weather or presence. The night speaks, and those who listen understand. Each chime is a syllable in the nocturnal language of the home, and their meanings are known by heart. A caretaker of records, sleepless by necessity, sits under lamplight transcribing household events. His ink is thin, his writing steady. What he writes may never be read, but the act itself is a prayer to continuity, that nothing is lost in the transition between days. He records the mundane as if it were divine. The time the gate was locked, the hour the tea cooled, the names of those who stayed awake so others might dream. One servant, older than most, meditates in the firewood shed, where silence is thickest. He chants without voice, eyes closed, palms open. No one assigned him this role. He appointed himself guardian of unseen things. The stillness around him grows heavy with presence. In his breathless vigil, he tends not wood or flame, but the sacredness of unbroken quiet. The night does not belong to the sleepers alone. It is shaped and protected by these unseen hands. Their work does not call attention, it calls peace. They are the threshold keepers, not of war or gate, but of quiet, of warmth, of dream. Without them, sleep would be uncertain. With them, it is whole. In the philosophy of the warrior, sleep is not merely rest. It is a rehearsal for death, for eternity, for the silence that must one day stretch beyond dawn. The samurai who rests well is not the one who forgets the day, but the one who accepts it, who lies down as if he may not rise, and yet does so without fear. The Futon, in this light, becomes a kind of boat, a vessel crossing the river between two states. He closes his eyes, knowing he may open them elsewhere, in another life, in another world. Some believe dreams were messages from the ancestors. Others, that sleep itself allowed the soul to wander. In any case, it was never taken lightly. No meal was eaten too late. No blade left unsheathed. Every motion leading to rest was part of a larger ceremony, a bow to the unknown. To surrender to sleep was to practice surrender in life. The warrior's sleep was quiet not only in sound, but in spirit, a silence that echoed beyond walls. The candle is out. Only shadow remains, wrapping the futon like folded wings. All is still now. The house, the garden, the man beneath the blanket. Even time seems to have paused, honoring the stillness that follows a day lived fully. May your dreams be quiet as the falling petals. May rest find you like moonlight on tatami. Thank you for sharing this silence. You are always welcome here. where shadows breathe and sleep remembers. It is a return to a place untouched by sword or speech, a place where form dissolves and only rhythm remains. The rhythm of wind through trees, of breath through lungs, of time.